Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So here I want to cover my Ranger Warden build for module 29. Keep in mind, this is something to work towards throughout the module. It will give you maxed out 90% in all of your damage stats, along with some good damage bonuses and about the highest item level I could get while achieving those results. Keep in mind, this is a solo damage build setup, meaning you don't rely on anybody to give you extra team buffs in order to achieve this, meaning it's excellent for when with random players. But do be aware of group bonuses you can get, particularly in end game content. For example, all of these here, where you'll easily be able to switch your weapons over to damage bonus ones. Same with your ring, rather than using the ones we have here that are there to just boost our power. And so you can totally just work towards those group bonuses and save yourself a bit of hassle of, say, getting these items if you decide you're going to focus on just the group, depending on people giving you these things. So let's begin with race and ability scores, as somebody recommended. I suggest half orc for this build to give you that critical severity. You do want to choose dexterity and strength as your ability scores there. While you're leveling up, you will also want to just choose strength all the way, and then dexterity, 4 points there that you choose, and then 2 last points into charisma. From here we go to the most important part, your power setups. We will cover both multi-target and single target. But first of all, multi-target. Now this is where you can be a bit flexible. You don't always have to go exactly what I have, but this is what I found works best. You'll be using primarily the at-will clear the ground, so you will be going in melee stance for the most part. Just be aware, electric shot can actually be a pretty heavy hitting at-will attack with a radius of 25 feet as well, and having a massive range, so it does have use cases. But then our encounter powers, hindering strike here, steel breeze, and throw caution. Now throw caution is where you can debate to use something else like plant growth, rain of swords, marauders rush. Those three are the ones I would switch between, and be sure to try them out for yourself. I just found throw caution can work the best, having a low cooldown so you can maintain your blade hurricane very easily, and just a 15% damage boost combined with this feat, meaning all of your abilities deal significantly more damage. The daily powers, we got the forest ghost there, and I found it provides more damage output in multi-target versus what you'd find with enhanced conductivity and your call of the storm, mainly because those can only actually trigger on one target every second, and Nature's Envoy now gives you a 15% damage boost. On top of that, Forest goes with a nice survivability effect because you actually go invisible and enemies can't attack you. So just a quick demonstration with those abilities here. You go in, use your throw caution, steel breeze, hindering strike, and then clear the ground at will, and everything could just be dead by then. And again, going to the next group, throw caution, steel breeze, hindering strike, and clear the ground, and everything's dead. You have some decent burst damage with that there, and some very good sustained damage with decent area with clear the ground and blade hurricane, and just very low cooldown on your abilities when you take in consideration storm's recovery. So you can do very good damage if you get a bit of time to do so. I would recommend messing around for yourself, particularly in multi-target. Depending on the content, you might find even Hunter to be performing a little bit better in some cases, and otherwise you might want to use a gap closer like Marauders instead, or a bit more multi-target damage with Rain of Swords or Plant Growth as front loaded rather than just a single target damage buff effect. But this setup is what I found works best for me. Now we go to single target damage. This is where it becomes more important to use the right abilities and in the right order. Again, this is what we're going with. Fortunately, you don't have to have a separate loadout because all you're doing is switching to Thorn Ward and Thorn Strike instead of your Steel Breeze. And then daily powers, you're making sure to use your snipe, and then at wills, you're using your rapid strike. For your class features, you want to go with that Seeker's Vengeance instead of that Twin Blade Storm. And that's it, everything else remains the same. Very nice and easy here. However, you will want to learn and practice your rotation. What you'll want to learn is artifact calls. Basically, it's a 10-second window where everybody in the group uses an artifact. Everyone uses a unique one, and each has the effect to increase the damage against the boss. And this can allow you to do like 3 to 4 times your normal amount of damage just within 10 seconds. So we need to optimize which abilities we use for that. Again, what I found works best are these powers in this order. If you do use the Mount Insignia bonus Tacticians, you actually will not gain much of an extra damage boost. It will give you a little bit more of a smoother rotation, but it's not overly necessary compared to other classes. As you can see, the order is pretty much the same. It might change a little bit by needing to use, say, Rapid Strike after your mount power before you can use Throw Caution again. But because you have so much cooldown reduction, you're just spamming out those encounter powers so quickly already. You can see a demonstration of this right here. So Split the Sky, Thorn Ward, your Artifact, then we're going Throw Caution, Hindering Strike, Thorn Strike, then you're going Snipe, your mount power and your belt item if you have it, Throw Caution, Hindering Strike, Thorn Strike, and a few rapid shots. And that's the 10-second artifact call over. You can already go straight using your Split the Sky and Thorn Ward again, and back to just melee and counter powers. And by the time you see your big Storm Cloud, which is super cool, it's my favorite ability on this class to be honest, just visually, you can switch back to your range stance and cast those again, as you can see here, because they should be off cooldown. And that just gives you a bit of passive damage over time. As you can see here, Thorn Strike hitting 6 times over the course of 10 seconds and Split the Sky 5 times. You can play without those if you find them a bit too clunky and have too much of a cast time, but you will definitely miss out on damage because these do add up quite a bit. And otherwise, just try and prioritize your Throw Caution before you use your other encounter powers so that you give them all of that 15% damage buff. And otherwise, just Rapid Strike all the way, and it should have that Blade Hurricane to get that double damage. So that's how to play Ranger Warden in both multi-target and single target. You're pretty effective, but you will find towards end game that you are getting a bit power creeped, and to be honest, the devs could do with improving it a little bit, otherwise potentially reducing the effectiveness of those top classes. But you have lots of potential and flexibility because you have so many different abilities you can use. Now let's cover what you need to get this build to have these 90% stats and to optimize in the way of damage buffs. So our gear is, as you can see it all here, you're getting to nearly 106,000 item level, which you actually do when switching to these multi-target arms, which I'd recommend since they'll give you the same bonus but when facing 3 or more enemies, and this one where you're just facing 1 enemy. But as per the document, you can see exactly where all of those gear pieces I'm using come from. Again, there are plenty of alternatives you can use to achieve similar results while still progressing throughout the game. You're just focusing on gear and items that give you bonuses to these stats primarily, and then some that would give you like damage boosts. For example, we have these boots, then this shirt, then these companion bonuses here. Now, if you are going outside of fire themed maps, you're not say in the new dungeon or in Hote now or some other fire themed maps, then absolutely feel free to switch out your boots to something else, either to give you like combat advantage or extra damage boosts, as we suggest here, like the sharp long boots or the rusted iron leggings if you can give up that survivability, or some other zone specific boots like damage in wild space. Your shirt, very readily you can switch that out to the Ember infused shirt, giving you the cooldown reduction. Not that you really need it, but it will help a little bit to get 100% uptime on Blade Hurricane. And like we said, in multi-target, you can switch those arms over to the depth forged ones, and then also the helmet over to something like the Dark Maiden's one, which would give you some action point gain rather than this combat advantage, which just won't have enough time to stack up. As per the modifications, just armor kits and jewels. You can see them here: crit strike, another crit strike, our accuracy, and our power. And then the neck, rings, and waist are all just combat advantage jewels there. You can see the exact ones in the document here. Then we go to our enchantments. This is what we use. It only really matters offense, utility, your combat enchantment, and then your bonus enchantment. You can have like movement speed instead, especially in multi-target when you want to be getting to the ad groups first. In defense, sure, ideally you'll have garnets, but feel free to just throw any old spare ones in there. Your overloads, you want to have like a Rage of Flames for general content, but again, don't use these unless it's challenging and you need to. Otherwise, there's plenty of specific enemy type damage bonus ones which are good, like against dragons, fiends, etc. And then I do recommend a Devil's Precision for those stats. For your artifacts, you want to go with ones that have lots of item level, but also have a primary one that can be used to support the team. So as we showed earlier, you want to have like these top 14 in a group to just increase the damage against the target for those artifact calls. And these other ones, yeah, are just for stats. Absolutely feel free to use cheaper alternatives. You can see in the document exactly where my ones that I'm using come from. Then we go to our boons. For our campaign page, we just have these set up here. If you want to go for more survivability, definitely get like enhanced application, blessed resilience, lingering medicine. Definitely fill out demonic mastery if you're running like the new dungeon or demon web pits or other such content against fiends. And keep in mind there's ones against dinosaurs, against cultists, and also against like undead here. As for the guild strongholds, we've got the accuracy there, defense, and like revive sickness if you're going to die. Otherwise, mount speed and just general zones, questing, and movement speed in like dungeons that you're not going to die in. Then we go to our companions. Here you want to have a striker companion summoned, so like pseudo dragon in single target, minotaur mercenary in multi-target. But there's loads of different ones. You can check my companion document linked below. We have all of these different ones ranked here. Just remember, Blaspheme Assassin, not as good as what is shown in this test, just because she needs a lot of time to achieve that. And yes, the multi-target ones I've tested are here, but I do recommend the Minotaur Mercenary, particularly because he'll help group up enemies with tidal force and like CC them, which is a huge help. The companion equipment are just from the Mount Hope Now campaign. Make sure to grab that while you can. You can currently access it regardless of your item level and just farm it and purchase it there. And then we have enduring senses here, but absolutely feel free to use acute senses instead if you don't have the flapjack companion, because that's the only place this comes from. Acute senses comes from so many other companions. Just look for some cheap one. They don't even have to upgrade the companion. It's just a matter of what summoned one you have. We have Minsk for bigger they are for that single target damage. For multi-target, we can use like Igneous Skin, as I just tested, is actually a multiplicative damage boost and can be very good. And otherwise, you could potentially use like the Phase Spider for some extra stats. But definitely prioritizing single target Minsk. Vetiri, also for those boss fights, super beneficial. But if you're going in multi-target, the Spine Devil is very nice there. Then we have the Stalldorf, the Neverwinter Knight, and the Golden Cat. You can see those in the document here with the different switches from single target to multi-target. Then we go to our mounts. So in our current tab, I do recommend Bigby's Hand as your combat power, but you can use alternatives like your Legendary Giant Toad, Golden Warhorse, or Tunnel Vision. We then have Dominant Force here, but if you're running with groups, at least in endgame, Ferocity is very good, particularly because it will be able to trigger your Blade Storm for some reason, even more. Then for our stable, we just have this set up, 3 Warlords motivations, and that is because there are just not any great options you can use. Potentially, yeah, you can use like Defender's Retort, but I did not find it to deal much damage at all, like 1% of it, and this is solo, just beating up enemies. And unfortunately, the only ability to trigger Enchanter's Hex is Split the Sky on the very first cast. So that's only 1 hit every like 15 seconds, so not really worth. And you don't need another Tacticians, you don't need another Artificers, and you don't need Executioners or Menders, as you can get all of your stats to 90% without that. And so 3 Warlords motivation it is, and your companion will do 22% more damage. For the insignias themselves, most of them are brutality with just 3 of them on skill. For the collars then, you want to prioritize encounter damage and critical severity, but you can see which ones exactly we're using as the other ones. They're just not really a big deal. Keep in mind for multi-target, you do want to use like the Pegasus combat power here, or the Space Guppy school mount with schools in session for also dazing and grouping up enemies. Very nice. From there, we go to consumables. And this build is simply just using your Flask of Potency from crafting, Squash Soup from events, Ratatouille from your guild food, your Wildstorm Elixir from your invoking. Then for the belt items, like a Stone of Health. Then for single target, you want the Owlbear figurine. For multi-target, you want like the Dragonfire or the Doohickey. And then for stats, we just have the Forger's Box, which absolutely feel free to go and upgrade. You can see those again here in the consumables section. And that overall is the entirety of this build. How to get it kit out to get all of those max stats. And again, it's just something to work towards. Just be aware, don't overpay for getting exactly what I have. There are generally quite a few alternatives. However, when going to end game content, you want to make sure to optimize a bit and you can improve your damage further. You can see all of these different benefits that the group can give you. You can get like over 30% extra stats just from the team, which allows you to switch some things around to improve your damage. For example, Mystic and Runic Aura would allow you to switch over to Ferocity. Using Portobello, Flapjack, and like Tutor would allow you to switch your weapons over to like damage boost ones, because you can switch your Staldorf or Golden Cat over to like power boost. And then alternatively, you could switch your headpiece over to like AP gain, like particularly multi-target. The Paladin Crit Aura would allow you to switch your crit ring over to like a damage boost ring, or even switch your pants over to action point gain, because that is definitely something to note. With artifact calls, you want to try and make sure you actually have that daily power. It's not as important here on Ranger because you're not actually making use of tacticians, but it still is a significant amount of magnitude you would miss otherwise. And so having pants here that give you action points per hit, like these ones, 25 action points every 5 seconds maximum, is very useful. But again, will depend what groups you're in. Are you doing artifact calls, and whether or not you can make up for that crit from like the Paladin Crit Aura. And there are also even some companions here which can give you boost to crit as well. And then there's the Tamed Velociraptor, which can give you an absolute ton of power, which then you easily switch off using, say, these weapons which just give power, this ring which just gives you power, and then you just use damage boosts instead of those. There are of course a few other things you can be aware of, like even Blessed Advantage giving you extra power can be more so relied upon if you're in a trial. Therefore, you could already switch these weapons out and just make use of that when you have multiple healers healing you. It has a pretty high uptime, but yeah, overall, again, this build is supposed to just serve as a solid baseline that you can tweak yourself, and it ultimately just gives you 90% in all your damage stats, along with giving you some good damage bonuses. Hopefully this helps to improve your damage by a bit, particularly on what powers to use in what order. Just be aware again, you can switch some things around depending on the content, and there's always the hunter path to consider as an option to play as well. I just found Warden can be a lot easier to play and have a little bit of a higher ceiling in terms of damage output. But once again, thanks for watching. A special thank you to all of these channel members for your extra support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.